What up, y'all? Welcome into the Parley. A longtime 15-year NBA veteran, Mr. Kendal Gill in the building. KG, what's up, man?
Nothing much, man. Glad to be here.
I like the
You
hoodie.
like this?
Yes.
Boots to fight.
Very nice.
Okay, Mike Tyson. You know, I wear this every once in a while. I got a lot of this stuff, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course, man. Boxing merch is always sick. You know what I'm saying? I don't have mine on right now, but I should have put it on. Parley sponsored by 60/40 Club. If you want to know Kendal Gill's workout regimen, which by the way I've been seeing, it's kind of back. Am I right? Are you out there, or some people out there doing?
Well, the
60/40?
weather's getting better, so you know, I'm back out there. I don't like to run when it's cold. Now that I'm in my 50s, you know, but
For sure.
before, you know, I used to do that Rocky style type stuff, but you know, now that I'm older, no, man, I gotta wait for the warmer weather.
Yeah, man, no, for sure. But love to see it. 60/40 if you want to know Kendal's workout regimen and how to get in shape in a crazy amount of regiments and what is it? What do we call these? Calisthenics. There you go. You got to check it out. It's definitely a dope thing to see that I've never done. Still after
We got to get you out
8 years.
Yeah, for real.
60/40 Club, sponsored by 60/40. We do have a special guest in studio. We haven't been on for a while, so we're going to be back giving you guys those weekly shows that we promised. And the boxing season is heating up. I mean, we got a huge event coming up next week in New York. I can't wait to see how that plays out outside in Manhattan with superstars all over the place. So I can't wait to see that. We'll talk about that later on in the show. But we do have a special guest in studio locally here from Chicago. I like to bring in people from our city because Chicago is slept on in the boxing community. After speaking to people nationally, I mean, they look at Chicago and they say, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Right.
Like, we have such a,
When Chicago used to be the Mecca.
Yeah. You know?
Man. Yeah. I mean, next to New York, back when they used to bring in Sugar Ray Robinson and all those guys, and used to fight here at Chicago Stadium. You know, Muhammad Ali used to live here, of course.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've had some champions to come through here.
Allstate Arena too.
Allstate Arena, yeah.
David Diaz, shout out.
Yeah.
But Chicago is definitely immersed in boxing, many boxing communities, many gyms, and many important people in the boxing community. And the gentleman I want to bring up, his name is Jason Prinzo, right?
Yes.
Prinzo, I want to say that right. He is a music executive and a mental health keynote speaker, and works with a promotional company out here with mentoring boxers and speaking to them. And Jason, it's a pleasure to have you, man.
Man, I really appreciate you guys having me on, especially for a subject that can be difficult to talk about, but an important one, right?
Yeah, and and we have Jason here at KG because we want to talk about something that's really not talked about, I think, too much in this sport specifically. We talked about this topic, I think, in many other sports. There's been documentaries, but really, in a sport like a combat sport like boxing, we think mental health, it's got to be one of the most important things now, especially boxing being known as one of the most loneliest sports.
Yes.
Ever, right? Or maybe even combat sports, if you want to put that in that category. But Jason, you're here to talk about a little mental health in boxing and how that affects boxers. And so I'll leave it to you. What really inspired you to start, I guess, putting a focus on mental health with boxers?
So, my mental health journey started at a really young age. I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder at 5, right? So, this is something I've been dealing with my whole life. And, it's become really important to me. But my first sport love was boxing. I come from Cincinnati. I grew up watching Aaron Pryor. Right.
Oh.
And Aaron and I became really close when he got older. And, Aaron struggled a lot with addiction and things like that. So the mental health in boxing, especially in the last 6-7 years, since guys have been coming out and talking about it, whether it's, Tyson Fury, Ricky Hatton has talked a lot about it. Obviously, Danny Garcia has probably been up front more than anybody. And even Ryan Garcia, which, we all know how that all went down, especially during the Haney buildup. Yeah. We've got guys that are struggling. Mike Tyson struggled. And we can get into what happened with Oliver McCall in the Lennox Lewis fight. I mean, that to me looked like a panic attack. I have a hard time believing that wasn't a panic attack. You break down like that in the ring, panic attacks are overwhelming. If you've never had one, it feels like a heart attack, and it feels like the walls are crashing down on you. And you're, like you said, it's a lonely sport, man. You did both. You played team sports and you fought. You could have an off night team sports and people are going to pick you up. You can't have an off night when you're fighting, you know, and it's lonely and everything is on you.
Right.
You know, that's a lot of pressure.
No, it is. And, you know, you go back to, you know, you spoke about or mentioned Ricky Hatton. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember when Ricky Hatton was knocked out by Manny Pacquiao, he said he went into a major depression.
Yeah.
You know, because of that. And, you know, I think that us as athletes, you know, especially when you get to the top like Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, or Ricky Hatton, once you're knocked off of that pedestal, then now it's like the mask has been pulled off, your cape has been taken away. Because up until that point, Ricky Hatton only had lost to Floyd Mayweather.
Right.
You know, and now he thinks his sense of invincibility now is gone. And that's tough to deal with mentally.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. There's a series of books by a guy, I want to say his name's Dan Sheridan, but he did a bunch of combat sports books where he went around the world and trained at different like gyms, right? And there's one book called like A Fighter's Heart. There's A Fighter's Mind. And in A Fighter's Mind, he talked about that, you know, you see combat sports fighters that after the fight, we know they clearly lost, right? I think Bernard Hopkins is a great example of this, but that is sitting there going, there's no way. I got cheated. Like, I did not lose this fight. Yeah. And it's because you have to mentally think that you are unbeatable to go into that ring. And the only way that you can lose is if you got cheated. And when, to your point, when that barrier gets broken down, that's tough to deal with, man. Like that sense of self and your identity kind of goes away. You know, and that's tough for those guys.
No, it does. It does. I mean, even when, and I'm going to use a basketball perspective. You know, I've played for 15 years in the league. When I used to see guys come in and get cut from a team, you could see right away that you know, they were the man in high school, they were the man in college.
Yep.
And now when they get to the pros, you know, they can still play, and they're still good enough, but some team says you're not good enough to play for this team.
Right.
Which is a tremendous mental hit.
Yeah.
You know, and I saw it time after time. And you know, I could see, you know, I was lucky enough, blessed enough to be where I wasn't one of those guys.
Right.
You know, but, you know, I could see each and every year I knew it was coming. You know, and you'd have a guy in training camp, you knew he was good enough, but you knew what was coming. You know?
Right.
And mentally he was going to have to it was going to be tough for him in the next, you know, couple of weeks or so for him to get over what was going to eventually happen being released from a team.
Yeah, and I think that happens in all major sports when it comes to retirement, right? Because normally it's not your decision. Right. And something you've been doing since you were 5 or 6 years old is suddenly taken away from you. And if you're a guy that didn't make a retirement money, now you're in your 30s, man, trying to figure out your career. And you may not have the formal education, you don't have work experience, and now you're trying to figure it out. And I know that's something that professional athletes in general all go through. I think Dwayne Wade talked about that he was going to go to therapy during his retirement just for that transition. You know, and you got fighters that have been doing this their whole lives, and you know you're taking L's, and it's over. That's a tough pill to swallow, man. And those guys really struggle with that.
Yeah, like Jason. Now, so would you think a perfect example of this would probably be at the current time Deontay Wilder?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that why you think he's like trying to come back now?
I mean, you know, look, again, you understand this. Deontay's what, 38, 39, 40? Like, that's still young. Yeah. That's still really young. And his body probably feels the exact same as it did at 28. Yeah. And you think you can go out there and do it, and you don't know anything else. Like, what is Deontay Wilder going to do from here on out? He was on a reality show a couple of years ago, and he left. Like, it was one of those ones where you live in this house and stuff like that. And he left after like 4 or 5 days. Like, really? So I feel bad for guys like that, because if you don't have some sort of outlet, or you don't have something to transition to, your life loses a sense of purpose, right? And you've got to have something driving you in order to keep yourself healthy. Yeah. You know, boxers get a bad reputation, right? Especially after they retire, because there are so many examples of guys that have fallen off after retirement. And we always want to say that it's because of their background or where they came from. But nearly every sport, guys are coming from the same place, right? Like, so it's not just a boxer's thing. I think it goes back to it being a really lonely sport. I think there's much more CTE trauma than what we know. And while things like addiction isn't a part of CTE, CTE changes your ability to make decisions, which then leads into drug abuse. You know, you're spending money, you know, much more than you were before, and then it just leads them into a bad place. And I think so many of these guys really struggle with that after retirement. You know, we talked about this a little earlier, all the sparring. It's not the big shots, the knockout shots you take. It's the jabs. It's the little shots over and over and over. Yeah. And, you know, headgear or not, these guys are taking damage. And it's, you know, if you're already having some mental health issues, it's crushing.
What do you have a personal experience? Did you box before? Or was it something that you saw from a family member or friend that really?
As far as mental health and boxing,
yeah.
So I boxed as an amateur for a while, and you know it's tough. I very open about my struggles. Imposter syndrome is a really big thing that I struggle with, right? And being a guy that didn't pick up the sport as far as being active till I was in my 30s, I always felt way behind. And this is going to sound strange, but you know, where I am in life today is much different than where I came from, and I realized that. Walking into a gym, I'm going to look like the typical white collar businessman fighter, right? And for me, I never wanted to be looked at like that. So I felt like I needed to go overboard and really impress people with, you know, going in and sparring with guys that were killers. And I just wanted to prove myself. And I never felt like I got there, right? I always felt like I wasn't good enough. Like, you get out of sparring. My trainer at the time, Lalo Beas, I would get out of sparring and I was like, man, I got, you know, he hit me a few times here. And because I felt like every time I got punched that I was messing up, right? And Lalo would say, hey, man, you take a shower, you're going to get wet. Right. You're going to box, you're going to get hit. It doesn't mean that you're not doing a good job. Right, and I don't remember any punch I've ever landed. I remember nearly every punch I got hit with.
Well, I used to see Jason spar a lot, so I know he did pretty good.
You know what? I won my division of the Golden Gloves in 2014, so I'll take that and walk away.
Yeah.
But, you know, because both things are near and dear to me, and so many guys started speaking out, it became an important topic for me. I grew up a huge Mike Tyson fan. And it clearly Mike has struggled with mental health issues. Yeah. And one of the things I don't think people realize is a lot of these moments where Mike has acted out, and I think the Lennox Lewis moment is a perfect example. When you're taking medication for mental health, right, it definitely like calms you down. And Mike, without knowing what Mike was taking, Mike was probably taking something that leveled him off. And when you stop taking certain medications, you have to wean off of it, because if you just stop taking it, it ramps up everything, and it makes you way more irritable, way more aggressive, and way more angry. And I can see a situation. They did take Mike off medication whenever he'd start training camp, because you got to have him be a killer, right? Yeah. But it would send him into this place that made him super angry. So when you see him acting out like at the Evander Holyfield fight or the Lennox Lewis press conference,
or even that ones after. Yeah, I think every fight after.
Yeah, that. I mean, that moment where he's yelling at guys from the table in the Lennox Lewis press conference again also looks like a panic attack. Like he's crying as he's yelling at these guys. That's a breakdown, man. Yeah. And it was probably because he was pulled off his medication in order to train. And it's difficult because as men, and this is becoming a bigger topic, as men, we're taught at a young age not to deal with our emotions, right? We're taught to toughen up. Yeah. Big boys don't cry. We're never taught how to problem solve. We're never taught how to de-escalate anything. We're just taught that power, strength, all of that means better. And like, don't cry. You got to shove it down. And it's an unfortunate thing that gets drilled into us because we grow up and become adults thinking the same thing. And we hold everything in because we think talking about it makes us weak.
Yeah, no, that's 100% correct. You know, because it's. I just recently had a friend pass away last week.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, last week today, but normally I'm not emotional about anything like that, and I'm telling you, man, the next Monday we got together a bunch of guys that play ball together and everything, and I just couldn't hold it.
Yeah.
So instead of me holding everything in, I just let everything out.
Right.
And it felt a lot better.
I was going to say, the way that I always kind of relate it is, when you're feeling sick, you don't want to get sick, but if you do, you're going to feel better right away. Right, crying is like that sometimes. Right, that's what I mean, throwing up, right? Right, but if you do it, it's good. You're going to feel better, right? You just got to let it out. Right, and I've gotten to the point where, and I'm not even embarrassed to talk about it, man. If I'm feeling down, I'll go somewhere and cry. Like, I got to get it out, man. Yeah. And self-care is so important for all of us, right? And we all have so much pressure, career-wise, relationship-wise, and as men, we think we've got to control everything. Not that we're controlling, but we think it's our jobs to make sure that everybody's good, that the house is taken care of, that bills are paid, and everybody's in a good place. And then we can take care of ourselves, right? But that's backwards. Like, we can't do all those things unless we take care of ourselves. And it's funny. I had a video the other day kind of joking around because there's this long-running joke about how when men get sick, we become these huge babies. Right? Yeah. And it is absolutely true. But it's the one time we're allowed to be weak. It's the one time we're allowed to sit there and let somebody else take care of us. So we're going to lean all the way into it, man.
Y'all heard?
Cut us a break.
I was looking at the camera, but behind the camera is Nikki. Shout out to her. I'm looking at her too.
So, man, you add all that stuff in with a sport that forces you to be aggressive, and you have to lean into that, man. It's a dangerous combination.
Yeah.
So Jason, when you think of guys retiring and they don't know what else to do and their mental health suffers, what about the guys that do know what they want to do and continue to be in the spotlight after they retire, aka Floyd Money Mayweather? How is that mental makeup? Is he happy? Is he trying to fulfill something? Is he?
Man, that's a great question because I don't know what motivates a lot of guys. So I think it's important to what motivates guys. I think if you look at somebody from an MMA standpoint, like a Conor McGregor, that thrives off of attention.
Yeah.
That attention has to get bolder and bolder and bolder, right? Because after a while, it's like, oh yeah, Conor's been doing that his whole life, right? So it's got to be more crazy and more crazy. Right. And guys like that, and you guys probably both known some people that they have a public persona, right? And what people don't realize is celebrities are not who they are in front of the camera, right? Like that's a show. Yeah. But a lot of guys become their gimmick. Right. Like I think Stephen A. Smith right now has turned into his television gimmick. And so you see guys like Conor that have turned into that's just become their personality. Yeah. And it just, like crazy or outlandish has become their thing. And so they lean into it. And it's just
Shannon Sharp. Oh. Perfect example.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he has really leaned into it.
Right. Right. I think it's important that everybody has some outlets and hobbies. I always say that it is going to sound corny, but I have a happy list, right? Like I have a list of things that make me happy. Like I love going to a coffee shop. Yeah. That's self-care for me, right? Yeah. I love going to the boxing gym. The boxing gym is one of the best things workout-wise that you can do for your mental health. Yeah. It gets out aggression. It releases endorphins. There's been studies that show how great boxing is for mental health. Yeah. But I've got this list of things that make me happy. They listen to music. I try to do one of those every single day, even if it's just 15 minutes. Okay. Like I have to have that in order to reset my mental health, reset my brain, because otherwise I've got 1,000 voices in my head all telling me different stuff, and I need it to stop. I need that to stop for a minute because that's constant pressure.
That's good. That's good. Can you give us 3 things that boxers should do to protect their mental health? I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of things, but top 3 things for you think they should really consider to protect themselves.
I think if you're unwilling to go and find therapy, and the reason I say that, even if you're not struggling with your mental health, I always say we diets in order to avoid heart disease and diabetes, but nobody does anything about their mental health until there's a problem. So I think it's important for everybody to start finding those outlets early on. I'm a big proponent of therapy, but if you're not willing to do that, just small things like journaling, like just writing stuff down and getting it out, not only allows you to have a release, but you start thinking of stuff differently, right? Like I'll journal. I'll be honest. I do this when my wife and I are fighting, where I'm mad and she's in the other room, and I'm like, man, I'm just gonna write this note to her and leave it here. Right. She's gonna see what I really think. And after I write it, it's so cathartic, and then I read it and it sounds ridiculous that it's like it's helpful for me. So like journaling is a really important one. I think one of the most important things any of us can do is socialize. Spending time with your friends is one of the biggest deterrents of issues with your mental health. There's a sense of community. There's a sense of belonging. There's shared experience. So in a sport that is so isolating, spending time around others, whether it's other guys in the gym, whether it's, your friendship circle, making sure that you get out is vitally important. It's one of the best things you can do for your mental health is socializing. Yeah. And I think that, continuing to find the things that you love, any sort of creative outlet is great. I started painting about 5 or 6 years ago, and it's probably been one of the best things I've ever done for my anxiety.
Nice.
Because when you're working on that, that's why adult coloring books and stuff are so popular. Because when you're working on that, man, you can't think of anything else but what you're doing in that moment. And when I get to that place, man, I got to set an alarm, because I'll sit there for 5 or 6 hours and won't eat, drink, go to the bathroom. Really? I'm just so locked in, and it just feels good because my mind's blank. Yeah. Right. Like I'm not thinking about all the pressures of life or things that I got to do tomorrow, or what's my schedule like. I'm just thinking about that. So I think creative outlets, I think journaling, if you're not willing to go to therapy, and socializing are 3 of the most important things you can do.
Yeah, my son, who turned out to be a great basketball player in high school, but at the beginning, when he had all these expectations on him and everything, he struggled, man. Yeah, his dad is an NBA player, and well, you got to live up to what your dad was, and all this and that, and he struggled with that. So, eventually he overcame it, and he was able to deal with it and everything, but. I can still see it sometimes. Yeah. But now he's starting to branch off, get out of my shadow, and now he's his own man. Yeah. But the mental aspect of it was tough for a long time. And my wife and I, we had to deal with it. And he struggled. And I advise him to do the same thing, which is let's go box. Yeah. Let's do something other than basketball. Right. And it helped out a great deal. So my thing is, it's boxing, but also cutting the grass and pulling weeds. Yeah. Making sure my garden is straight.
Well, that's a little hit of dopamine too, right? When you see.
No, yeah, right? for real though. For real. I mean, when I cut the grass the right way, when I used to do it when I was a kid, how my dad showed me and everything, when I'm going to getting weeds out of the garden, that's why I don't let anybody cut my grass. Yeah. What I mean? People are like, why are you cutting grass? You hire a landscaper. I was like, yeah, but this is my thing. Right. Yeah. This is a way that I can, same way with you with painting. Yep. I can quiet my mind. I'm out here. Yeah. Wife isn't bothering me. It's just I'm at peace. Yeah. That's why I do it.
It's funny, you talk about the dopamine release, and I think that's an important thing to talk about because, for most professional athletes, like, football, you've got that game on Sunday, you have this release, and anytime you have like a major dopamine release, there's a crash afterwards. Yeah. And boxers only get that once every 6 months. Then you crash, and you got nothing else to lift you back up until you have another fight. It's like a hard reset. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like starting over all the times, and that can be really tough. Yeah. NBA, you guys have several games a week, so you're constantly moving on. Where as a fighter, you got that release, then there's a crash, but you've got people that are depending on you. Your trainer, your manager, like all these people are depending on you. And that's a lot of pressure, especially when you're a young kid, 18, 19 years old, right? You don't even understand. And for a lot of these guys are making money for the first time. And that's a lot to try to manage when you've had no example of how to handle it or have never been taught that it's okay to feel the things that you're feeling.
Right. And even though I'm not a fan of this guy, that's a big reason why Ryan Garcia has gone through, in my opinion, the things that mentally that he's gone through. Yeah. Because of all the things that you just mentioned. Right. Right. And, I think he's working his way out of it with maturity, but, it's a perfect example of that.
Well, you look at Ryan, you look at Danny Garcia, and it's a great example of how fame, money, accolades can't overcome mental illness. Yeah. right? Like I think so many of us look at it like, man, if I had that life, or if I didn't have to worry about money, I'd be great. Yeah. It is just going to be something else. I was shocked in 2018. Is kind of, even though I've been struggling since I was 5, 2018 is like when I made my real public admission, right? Not that I didn't have a press conference or anything, but I posted something on Facebook. And I was surprised at the responses I got. What I was really surprised about were how many of my former professional athlete friends that were football players that, you know, you're talking about these alpha males or guys from the gym would come to me one-on-one and go, hey, man, I didn't know you were struggling. I feel this same thing. I've never talked to anybody about it. Because there's no space to, right? And I think that we as men need to realize we're all feeling the same thing, and it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to go to your best friend or somebody and admit that you're struggling, because you're probably going to find out that they have dealt with or feel those same things. And we can't keep it all in. Like, we've got to find some sort of release. I talk to the Chicago Police Department maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, and they're kind of in that same boat, right? Like, y'all got to, they see stuff and deal with things that we're never going to understand. And if they don't have somebody to talk to about it, especially somebody that's got shared experience and can understand, like, it's tough, man. And as a boxing community, I think it's really important that we find ways to come together and help each other and be able to talk about these things openly without the pressure of feeling like we're going to be looked at as weak.
Yeah, judgment and all that. Yeah.
You know, and in that same realm, as we transition a little bit here, and, you know, mental health being so important in the boxing community, any community really, but boxing, you know, I think it holds a little more weight because of what they go through. You know, how do you think Devin Haney reacts in his next fight after what he just went through? I mean, I am sure he went through months of some therapy or something, right?
Yeah.
You, like, from getting hit by that left hook, your first loss, to finding out that PEDs were in the picture, you know, allegedly, you know, and no, or well, actually no, he was banned, right? Suspended. But how does Devin handle?
Man, you know, that's a great question, and I think the wild card there, and I don't know anything about this, so I'm not making any claims, but he's also got the pressure of his father that is very vocal, right? So now, you know, he's way more vocal than Devin is. Oh yeah, right? Like, almost kind of like how Danny Garcia is, but Danny's dad was the one like running. So now you got to defend all the stuff that your dad's been saying, right? Like, you don't, and I don't know deep down what Devin's feeling. Right. But that's got to be a lot of pressure, too, where your dad's out there like talking all this mess that you got to go back up. Yeah, you gotta go back, and now you might be questioning yourself as far as, you know, like, what am I really capable of? I think Devin needs to take, you know, an easy fight this next time and get his confidence back. But, you know, he needs to fight somebody that's going to crack him a little bit so that he knows he can still take it.
Oh, he has his opponent.
Right.
He has his opponent. I think he's going to challenge him for sure.
I'll be honest with you. Outside of the knockdowns, I thought Devin fought pretty well in that fight.
I thought he was winning.
I rewatched it this week actually, and I was like, man, Devin was winning like he had won in 5-6 rounds.
Yeah, I thought he was winning until he got caught a couple times.
Yeah, and I think Devin will win that rematch, right? Yeah. Because he boxers beat punchers nearly every time. Yeah. Right? Like, there's never been a big puncher that at some point in their career went up against a guy that can move around that didn't get beat. Right? Like, I think I've been saying for years that's going to be Tank's downfall, because Tank gives away rounds in every fight, waiting for the knockout. When he doesn't,
he low-key lost it last fight. Right. We're not talking about that, though. We're not talking about that.
Same thing in the Pitbull fight, right? Like you know, he stayed tough the whole time. Almost lost that fight, and it's not a knock on Gervonta, because I think he could be a better boxer puncher and get guys out of there and outbox guys. But I think for Devin, he's got to get back to doing what he does best, and almost just like, stop even talking about Ryan, man. It's just bringing it back up. And you're just going to like stay in that mental space. Like, move on. That shit's behind him. Yeah, you got to move on.
So you're right. And when I just recently saw a press conference, not a press conference, but I guess a podcast.
Sit down? Yeah.
A sit down with Ryan and who else was on that?
Everybody. Teofimo, Ryan.
Lopez, all those guys. Yeah. I wouldn't sit there with Ryan Garcia, knowing you cheated.
It was
knowing you didn't make weight.
It was an awkward.
Yeah.
Knowing you didn't make weight, you came in and you didn't come in as the contract specified, and I found out you've been taking something, and you beat me. I know it's not legally on his record, right, but still, he lost.
I think if you're Devin, you've got to, and if you're Devin's father, you got to drill into his head that the only way you were able to get beat is because this guy cheated.
Yep.
Came in heavy, PEDs. It's the only way he could beat you. And that I think that's going to be the really important next step for him. We've seen guys in his position that completely just fell apart after they've taken that loss. And I'm hoping for Devin because I'm a fan. I love watching him fight.
Yeah, I mean, Devin works the sweet science beautifully. I cannot.
He does.
Stunt, he's not. I don't think he's the best of the. He doesn't do it like Floyd, right? He has a lot of gaps and holes in his defense and so forth. But he does work the sweet science well, and I'm really interested to see how he mentally adapts. But you can say something, KG?
But he's not going to get over it until he does what Cotto did. Face Margarito. He's got to face Ryan Garcia.
Yeah, that's another example. When Cotto lost to Margarito, he went to a deep depression.
Yeah.
We all know that.
Yeah.
And believe me, I guarantee you Devin was depressed too. May still be.
Sure.
But he got to face that guy on an even playing field for him to get over this. Because I guarantee you, if he doesn't fight him again, he'll never get over this.
Yeah.
Tito too, KG. Oh, he was down. Tito's down bad.
Yeah, with Bernard Hopkins.
Yeah, he was down
that
bad
was
after
tough.
Bernard.
I was too.
I love Bernard. I love this.
He was great.
Bernard's great fighter, man.
Yeah.
But Tito was our guy, man.
Right.
Tito was our guy.
Right.
Because if Tito wins that fight, now he goes and fights Roy Jones, which he probably would have lost, but still,
Right.
And eventually did lose to Roy. But I mean, we were on the Tito train back then.
See, I was a fan like Bernard and like Sean Porter, those guys that maybe physically weren't as gifted than everybody else, but figured out how to be great.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I love guys like that.
Errol Spence is another example too.
We
don't even have to talk about his mental health, right? I mean, which I'm sure was hugely affected, but everything he went through before, like how do you mentally or how do you physically get back into a ring after being destroyed?
That one was tough,
And
right?
then he even admitted, I guess recently, right, that alcohol was a huge issue.
Yeah.
Well, I had somebody close friend of ours. I won't say his name, trainer, and before Errol lost the fight, he said, the only person who's going to beat Errol is Errol. He said he drinks all the time. He told me this 3 years before he fought Terrence Crawford.
Wow.
Yeah.
He said no. He said he's going to beat himself. He drinks too much. So.
And then think about the pressure these guys have now where you look back in the 80s, you'd have 2, 3, 4 losses and still be considered elite.
Yeah.
And Floyd has turned this into like, if you don't have an O, you're not as good. And that's a really unfair thing because you're talking about when you got these super fights, you're talking about the best of the best. Like these things are razor thin. Look at all the Wilder Fury fights. Those are razor thin fights, right? But because Deontay lost those fights, his legacy is going to look different than what it would have if he fought in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right about that.
So that it's just another amount of pressure, and guys like as soon as they take a loss, it's like you're not great anymore. That's true. And I just don't understand it.
It's I love being able to talk about this and talking about the dynamic of what boxers have to go through. People think athletes are robots.
Yeah.
And when you're a fan, right? When they don't perform, you yell. When they don't do something you want them to do, you think they're garbage, right?
Yeah.
I think somebody told me the other day Brian Scalabrine went on some blacktop with a whole bunch of fans, and they were screaming at him, telling him, you ain't nothing. And Brian was like, yeah, I'm closer to LeBron James than you will ever be. And then he just proved it. He was just,
Right.
And so athletes are not robots. And
right.
I'm sure everyone, in KG, I know you have too, has gone through a moment of having to say, I need to, reset my mind, value myself, and then go from there. And I think in the sport of boxing, what you're doing and what you advocate is huge and important. So we definitely commend you for bringing this to the forefront of the table.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, this is great.
Thank you for having me, you guys, because it's really important.
Because we have not had a show that addresses mental awareness.
And it doesn't have to be sad, right? Like I'm trying to make the conversation just be normal, right? Like let's just have a normal conversation, but it doesn't have to be doom and gloom all the time.
Yeah. One person I didn't mention, which we're going to talk about here in a second before we get out of here, is Rolly. Rolly getting knocked out by Gervonta. Wonder how he handled that first loss. After you got literally knocked, you were knocked in cuckoo land.
Right. Look, I got my feelings on Rolly in general. Yeah. Like Rolly's, he's the worst well-known fighter in the world, right? Like Gervonta and his team did a great job of making him seem legitimate.
Yeah.
Like that dude hasn't thrown a straight punch in his career.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But like Rolly, to me, it feels fake, right? Like that confidence, that shit talking that he does feels like he's playing a role more than like actually who he is, right? Like going up there when they had that press conference, he's got the fur coat on, and it's 100 degrees. I was like, dude, what are you doing, man? Like this doesn't feel like legit to me.
Yeah. And Teofimo, the other guy I wanted to mention too, after he lost to Kambosos. I mean, knowing that he wasn't himself, right? And something did not seem right, but for sure I know he had to go through something. Yeah. After losing Kambosos.
He was not the same. Like he didn't, like even after the fight, he didn't sound the same. Like it took him a minute.
What are you talking about? Didn't he retire for a day or something like that?
Yeah.
It's crazy stuff.
Again, that's that whole, like, you have that dopamine release and you just crash afterwards, man. Like when I do these keynote speeches, when I'm done, people want to come up and talk to me, and I understand because they're finally hearing from somebody that they can relate to and they feel comfortable talking to. But they're all dumping on me, man. And like I have to go. I literally have to, if I'm traveling, I have to go to my hotel room and just get it out for an hour or so. Yeah. And there's a huge crash. And you know, Trinidad Garcia, my partner in the management team, we talk about this. Like even for him, when we've got fighters fighting, when it's over, when the weekend's over, there's a crash, and it's depressing, right? Yeah. Because you're hyped and you've got all this energy and excitement going, and then suddenly, like, you're done at the drop of a dime, and you crash.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. But it's like I said, it's always, and I think nowadays we see it more. People just kind of admitting or just going through the process of it to be able to take care of themselves. And like I said, it's always great to see, people like you bringing that to the forefront, helping people with it, and just kind of like saying it's okay. Yeah. It's okay to experience this.
Yeah. And I think we need more men being willing to talk about it, that they struggle, and being willing to talk to other men about it and open up. Like, look, nobody can understand what boxers go through but other boxers. And for the community to be able to talk about it and lean on each other, I think is vitally important. It's just at some point we've got to figure out a way to all come together and not just be competing gyms and competitors. That this is our sport. We love it. We want to see it grow, and we want people to be healthy. And it's important that everybody succeed, not just one or two gyms.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, before we get out of here, Jason, we got to ask you a couple questions about what's coming up on May 2nd. May 2nd, one of a unique event in New York. We talked about it earlier in Manhattan. 3 big fights, right? 3 big names in the fights. The third fight of that night is going to be Teofimo Lopez versus Arnold Barbosa Jr. For the super lightweight WBO title. That's going to be an awesome fight. Any guesses on what's going to happen in that fight?
Barbosa looks so good in that last fight. He's so strong, man. But I feel like Teofimo has his mojo back a little bit. Like he looks like old Teofimo to me. He does. And again, like I always say, boxers beat punchers. And I like Teofimo in this fight. I mean, we'll see what happens. It's a 50-50 fight, but I do like Teofimo.
The thing that worries me about Teofimo, his inactivity.
Yeah.
He got to get more active, man. I mean, because one of these days he's gonna step in that ring. He's gonna, because of the inactivity, he's not gonna be the same.
Yeah.
And I worry about this with every one of the boxers, because it seems like for a minute there earlier this year we were getting the fights, but it seems like now everybody's. You look at Errol Spence now. It's 2 years now. He's okay.
Speaking of mental health, the Charlo brothers.
Charlo brothers have been so inactive. I mean, it's just.
Yep. That's the third fight. The co-main event is Devin Haney and Jose Carlos Ramirez, junior welterweight. So looking to rebound, obviously. After,
I love Devin there.
I mean, Devin should be the winner.
Right. As long as he isn't completely broken, right? Like he should win that fight.
Yeah.
Listen, I think Devin Haney. Remember, he fought Regis Prograis the fight before he fought Garcia. He looked like the best boxer.
Yeah, he looked great.
On the planet.
Yeah.
The way they
untouchable.
Against a talented guy.
Against a talented guy, Regis Prograis. But then that's why I think that the weight thing with Ryan Garcia and the PED, whatever it was, that's what was the deciding factor in that fight. Yeah. So I'm looking to see Devin Haney come out and put on a virtuoso performance, then go right back to Ryan Garcia. Please call him out after you win this fight, Devin Haney.
Yeah, for sure. Even though he's the second fight, which is going to the main event, Rolly and Ryan Garcia. I don't think we should even talk about the analysis of that fight. I think we know Ryan should handle business in that fight. But I guess the big question, and before we get out of here, is, when's that rematch? Is it this year? Do we see it this year? Do we see it next year?
I think
it's signed already.
Yeah, I think we see it later this year.
September.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to put them both on the card
Canelo's
together.
date?
It's tough to do Canelo's date unless Canelo's fighting in Saudi Arabia and they make that fight here in the States, because the Saudi Arabia fight's going to be done by 5:30 or so.
They can also do
late
November. There's fights.
They can do it in November too.
Yeah,
but I don't think they'd put that fight on Canelo's card.
You can't do that.
No. You would have. Well, I meant you would have to do it the same night, but you would have to do it domestically, where the times are going to be different, right? Because those fights are so early over in Abu Dhabi that you can get out of the way.
Oscar and the Prince know what's up. Don't be dumb, guys. Just separate the events.
That's right.
Do us a favor. Right. Make money on different dates.
Because that when Devin and Ryan rematch, that is going to be a hell of a.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be it's gonna be Canelo status type fight.
Yeah, for sure. And before we go, I just want to say a little promotion here. Elia Carranza, one of our fighters, she's taking on Natasha Spence tonight, which is a really big fight. Natasha's been in with some really difficult fighters in her career, so it's a big test for Elia, and we have really high hopes for Elia. We think she's a world champion. We think after this fight, we deserve a world championship fight.
Okay.
For sure.
And then we've got Juan Guerrera fighting next week on the Inouye card.
Vegas.
Okay. Vegas. He's coming off the big Nico Ali Walsh fight.
That's right.
He's fighting a guy named Art Barrera Jr.
Did he knock out Nico?
No, he won by decision.
He won by decision?
He won by decision. We were really proud of Juan because Juan had to drop a lot of weight in a short amount of time. And for him to drop that weight and come in and still be strong and get that win was big. Okay. He's fighting a prospect from Top Rank in Art Barrera Jr. He's 8-0 with 6 KOs. Going to be a tough fight. But if you go back and look at who Juan has fought his whole career, he's not fought anybody with a losing record. Like, he has fought tough guys because that's what he's wanted the whole time. And this is another example of it. Like, he came off that Nico Ali Walsh fight and was like, give me another killer.
Yeah. And I went to the gym 2-3 weeks ago to Unanimous, and I spoke to him. We had him on. I haven't posted it yet, but we're going to post it soon. He said he was sick that day. He said he wasn't even feeling well. Yeah. But he battled through it, and Juan, he is a gritty fighter.
Yeah.
Like, he does not. He gets hit and he gets back.
He wants
in the
it.
pocket.
He wants the smoke.
Yeah. So big props to Juan out doing his thing against Nico. We're very proud of him in Chicago. For what he did. And Elia as well. Elia, when I spoke to her when she was here last winter, she was telling people, she called everybody out. She was like, listen, man, let's fight. Everybody needs to fight each other. I'm ready. Let's go. And
we can't find a fight for Olivia Curry.
And Olivia,
like, everybody's avoiding Olivia, and like Olivia, like it reminds me a little of like Sean Porter, which makes it difficult for her to get fights because she's got to get in there and dirty it up a little bit. And even if you happen to beat Olivia, you're not going to look good, right? She's dangerous, and everybody's avoiding her, and I don't understand why. Like, somebody needs to step up to that challenge.
Number 3, 160, 168 pounder.
Last for 160. She could do 160, 168. She's closer to 168.
Yeah. Number 3 though. In the country, and she still can't. She can't get that fight since we fought in Miami. Last year around this time.
Yeah.
So
jumped in there with Shadeza. Went the distance with her. Like,
great fight.
Yeah.
So we have great, stable, unanimous boxing, unanimous management. Sorry, and shout out to Action Jack as well, who was doing his thing in the Dallas league over there.
Yep. And look, man, Jordan's worked so hard. Chucky, Action Jackson was his name, Jordan Jackson. Yeah. He's worked so hard, man, and he's just such a great kid and really talented. He's long and lanky. When he gets his jab going and follows it up with the right hand, he is tough to beat because he starts working up and down. Yeah. Really good fighter. Ronnie Jalomo is another one we got.
Shout out to you. Big win last weekend as well.
Yeah, man. And Ronnie, we put him in there with the tough guy we thought would give him some rounds, and Ronnie blasted him out of there, which is great, but we need our guys to get some rounds. And so, like, we're,
take it easy.
Right. Our stable's gotten really good, and guys are avoiding us. So it's been tough to get fights for our guys, which is a good problem to have good fighters. Bad problem to have when you're having a tough time getting them fights.
Absolutely. Big shout out to Unanimous Management and all your boxers. We'll be back in that gym very soon to see how everything's going and see what's coming next for the crew.
Yes, sir.
Once again, where can they follow you, Jason?
You can find me at Jason Prinzo MH for mental health. Prinzo. You can find me there on Instagram. It's probably the easiest way to grab me.
Awesome. It's a pleasure having you, and we hope to have you soon.
Man,
again.
love to be back.
Some of the boys and Olivia and even Elliot, hopefully get them in studio as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love that.
In the studio. Before we leave the show, don't forget the Parley sponsored by 6040 Club. Check us out. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. All the links are in the description box. We are on social media, Parley, Boxing, Chicago. KG and I are always covering. We want you guys to do it. Once again, the Parley. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time. What up, y'all? TLO here for the Parley. Kendal Gill, 15-year NBA veteran in the building as always. Hey, man, if you like what you just saw, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You guys got to follow us. Season 7 is going to be insane. We are going to be here. We hope you are here for it. But, Kendal, let's go. On the court, I need my rematch. That 10-0 game was a fluke. Let's go.
TLO, as the great Floyd Mayweather once said, there are levels for a reason. There are weight classes for a reason. You're messing with a heavyweight. A professional basketball player. You're a lightweight. I don't want to take your confidence away from you, TLO. Okay? You've been doing well in your rec leagues. You've been winning championships in your rec leagues.
Let's go.
Stay on that level.
Let's go now.
Well, you go practice.